Would you support a millionaire tax?
I think it would be very disruptive because a lot of the millionaires would leave the country. You know, in the old days, they left states. Now with transportation so quick and so easy, they leave countries. You'll lose a lot of money if you do that. Other countries that have done it have lost a lot of people. They lose their wealthy people. That would be bad because the wealthy people pay the tax.
President Trump coming out against a Republican plan to raise taxes on millionaires to pay for his low and middle income tax cuts, like no tax on tips, Social Security, or overtime. Joining me now is North Dakota Senator Kevin Cramer. Senator, good morning to you, and thank you for being here. Do you support the plan to raise taxes on millionaires? There's been a lot of controversy on this, many on the right saying this shouldn't be on the table at all.
Well, first of all, Jackie, when the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act were negotiated in 2017, I was a House member then. I remember it very well. Those 7 brackets were negotiated with great, with great diligence, and the numbers mattered a great deal. So, if we were to, for example, just ignore the top bracket, the tax on the top earners would go from 37 to like 39.5%. Now, that's not a huge percentage in terms of dollar amount. It's probably fairly significant. Would it be a big deal? I don't know. I'm not in that bracket. But I do know this, that right now, under the current scenario, the top 1% of earners in this country pay 46% of the income taxes. That's a pretty significant number. And I don't know that you'd want to disincentivize that kind of behavior. It's not our system. So I don't want to oversimplify it one way or the other, but I think that we had a good formula in 2017. If we can make that permanent as sort of the baseline going forward, I think we have a pretty good formula to start with.
Well, they always say we don't have a revenue problem, Senator. We've got a spending problem. Right. And certainly when it comes to the House, they're looking for deeper spending cuts than the Senate is. And that seems to be the sticking point on this. Has the Senate been able to make any progress on seeing the side of the issue, which is we've got to pay for the tax cuts for the lower income Americans? It will help them a lot. It will boost the economy a lot. And therefore, there are programs that are bloated in this country. DOJ has identified fraud and waste, for example, in Medicare and Medicaid. You know, there are ways to scale back without throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
There's no question, Jackie. The policies matter, and the waste, fraud, and abuse is a policy issue. It's not a spending issue so much as getting rid of it will make a difference. It will make a huge difference in terms of, first of all, discipline. To your point, the spending discipline, finding the cuts that can pay for some of the other things we want to do. But at the same time, I reject the notion that pro-growth tax policy should require cuts. So let's grow the economy, which will grow the revenue. And one of the ways to do that is reduce regulation. Taxes are a regulation. Waste, fraud, and abuse become a bit of a tax in and of themselves on the people that aren't benefiting from the waste, fraud, and abuse. The Senate, just to be clear, the Senate is not opposed to and to reforms. The Senate process is different. The Senate rules are different. So we put in floors, not ceilings. And if you put in, if you put in a ceiling and don't reach it under the budget reconciliation rules, the whole thing collapses in the Senate. So we have to be careful. And the only numbers that really matter in the Senate, the only number that matters is 50. You know, what's the tolerance of 50 votes? And whatever that is, that's going to have to be the threshold. But we have a $1.5 trillion ceiling in the budget reconciliation bill that we passed, the actual budget. And that, remember also, Jackie, we start with the thing that we did reconcile with the House, and that is the current policy as the baseline. That means that making the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act permanent, it eliminates a $4 trillion tax increase.
Right, that was huge.
If we do nothing but that, we've done that's pretty huge.
Yeah, I don't dispute that.
So if we can add another $1.5 trillion, that's going to be significant to the economy. But yes, we have to get after, not in millions or billions, but trillions when it comes to deficit reduction through spending cuts as well.
Senator, several Republican lawmakers have been on this program recently on how they're prioritizing these middle-class tax cuts that we've been talking about. They want to keep their options open with respect to how to pay for it. Let's watch.
This is a new Republican Party. Our base, we're no longer the country club Republicans. We have to understand that our base is now working and middle-class Americans. They're the people that put Trump in office. So anything that we do has to have an eye toward making sure that working families are not getting hit with a tax increase.
But the objective here is to have an overall tax bill that addresses the economic needs of the middle class and the vast majority of Americans.
We're looking at everything in the tax code, and we're going to provide a tax code that creates growth. It's pro-small business, pro-family, pro-worker.
The Tax Cut and Jobs Act under President Trump brought it to 37 for those on income levels over $750,000. By bringing it from the 37 as we're redoing the tax plan to perhaps 38.6, right? It would still be 1% less than it was before. If you were to bring it up at one point, it brings about $15 billion in revenues. So if it did come up to 39, it's almost $25 billion.
Senator, the American people really suffered under the Biden economy. They were struggling with high inflation, costs going up left and right and center. Wages were not able to keep up. These tax cuts would be dramatic when it comes to the middle class in this country and the low income, and as some of the clips point out as well, small business, which is the backbone of the American economy.
Well, for sure. And so to that last point, which is what we were talking about earlier,
yeah.
If the 37% goes to 39.5 or 38.6, that is a tax, a larger tax on the top earners, which is, again, in and of itself may be okay if it creates 15 to $25 billion for further cuts to the middle class or the lower class. Am I open to that? Sure, I'm open to that. But I also don't want to destroy the economy in the process, because those top earners are also the wealth creators.
Right.
They're not just the wealth earners, they're the wealth creators. And furthermore, remember, one of the aspects, I think genius aspects, frankly, of the 2017 tax cuts, which was really driven by Ron Johnson's insistence in the Senate at that time, is the pass-through rate. And treating and remember, small business is taxed basically based on the income tax rate, and it's the pass-through that's so critical. So you could increase the tax on top earners, but at the same time, that would be increasing the tax on small business. And the policies matter around all of this, Jackie. I know you know that.
It would be a serious problem, and we started with the soundbite of the president saying he was taking it off the table because he understands that would force high-income earners to flee, and we don't want to see that.
That's right.
Senator Kevin Cramer, thank you, sir. Great to see you this morning.
Great to see you, Jackie. Thank you.